Welcome back to the November edition of NMRAx. I'm Speed at the bottom of the helix, and with us today are no strangers. We welcome our publications chair, department head, however big his title is, all the way from Austin, Texas, as well as our very own president, way back up in Orkney, Scotland. Please welcome Riley Triggs and Gordy Robinson.
Thanks, Speed. Right, should we take it away? All right. This is where Gordy shares the wrong thing. All right, cool. There you go, Riley.
All right, you want me to kick this off?
Yeah, let's go. So we're
All right,
talking about
great. So what we're talking about today are the new branding guidelines for the NMRA. It's been a really exciting project that started over a year ago to coincide with the new vision and rethinking of the organization of the NMRA. And this is all in support of the refreshed vision and vigor and excitement that's going on at national and all across the NMRA. So for the promotional materials, what I'd like to do today is show you a little bit of the background research that went into this. Like I said, this was about a year-long process. We had a branding firm help us with this. They spent probably a good, I guess, 10, 11 months on this process. And they started out by researching what the NMRA is, how it sits in the hobby, researching the hobby, and really understanding the context and what is happening in and around model railroading in order to help us best. So this document that they created, it's quite a long document. It's about 298 pages, I think, and and this encapsulates their months-long research into all things visual, organizational, just kind of understanding again the lay of the land for which they were going to be working through. So Gordy, if you'll just kind of scroll through this, I'll talk over it as it goes by. Um, but the idea was that they started out in January of this year with their research at the Amherst train show. And as you know, there's 20 plus thousand people that go to this show, and they did a lot of time, spent a lot of time interviewing people, people who were members of the NMRA, people who were not, board members who are there from the NMRA, um, vendors, manufacturers. It was a really great cross section of people to start to get to understand what's going on with the NMRA. So what they did is they actually recorded these interviews, dissected them, looked for common themes, looked for kind of positive comments about things, negative comments about the NMRA. We had lots of long talks with people who had very definite opinions about what was going on with the NMRA, both people who kind of knew the NMRA from the past, and people who are members or again non-members of the NMRA right now, and understanding why they are members, why they aren't members, all of this in order to create an understanding of how we can best portray what the organization is, and more importantly, what the organization wants to be. So this is a very introspective, rethinking, but also aspirational um, exercise to go through a rebranding of a 90-year-old organization. Um, so yeah, if you just keep going down, Gordy, until the visuals about, well, here are some of the words that kept coming up, things like inclusivity, community. Um, these are things that people think about when they think about the NMRA, and so we wanted the branding to identify with this and to promote this sort of vision of the organization. But they also went through a visual exercise of just understanding kind of what things look like, what kind of colors were used, what the logos look like for all of our divisions, all of our regions, and just understanding kind of where we're coming from visually. So the old word mark, and how that has been used and employed, and then also all of our individual assets that come through our different divisions and regions. So they look for commonalities, differences, um, colors, fonts, really trying to understand exactly what things have looked like in the past and how to play off of that, carry through some of those traditions, carry through some of those ideas. But also, again, this is supposed to be aspirational, and it's supposed to be um, a visual representation of where the organization wants to go. So one of the big problems that we had identified early on, and one of the goals of this project, was to make sure that if somebody saw a division or a region logo, that they actually understood that it was part of a larger NMRA organization. This has been a real challenge throughout, because if you look at one of these logos, you don't know, you don't have any sort of sense that this belongs to the NMRA, and it doesn't have the look and feel that is consistent throughout the organization. So taking the division logos, which I think there were a couple hundred division logos at this point, and really breaking down, what sort of fonts do they use, what are the colors that they use, understanding how many of each color were being used, and how the national could encapsulate um, the look and feel of so many different logos, so many different looks, and bring it all under one umbrella, which is very analogous to what the NMRA is all about, in bringing together under one big umbrella all people who like model trains, model railroads, model rails, model railways into one place. So this was some of the background research that they did in order to inform them how to move forward with the design. So I think along with this, with the interviews, they did some research into manufacturers, vendors, what sorts of, again, same sort of thing, colors, the look and feel. And then we talked a lot about how we wanted to situate the NMRA um, in the hobby and in the world at large. So there's actually, a couple of big audiences for this. There's, the members that we have, and then the members that we want to have, people who are in the hobby, people who are not necessarily in the hobby, and how is this new branding and these new logos going to perform not only within those pretty insular and pretty tight communities, but also on the larger stage to act as a welcoming beacon to others who may be coming to model railroading for the first time. Um, so all of this is kind of to say this is not just throwing the initials NMRA into an AI generator, which some people have done as suggestions for a new logo, but just not throwing it into an AIA online, Chat GPT sort of engine, and coming back with some sort of generic idea of what a logo might be. This was a very deliberate process. This was not an easy process. Throughout this, we had a committee that was formed. That was me and Gordy, John During, who's a board member. We had Dave Inslee from the Northeast region, Lucy, our engagement person, our social media person from the NMRA. Um, I can't remember who else was on there. Cynthia was on there from the magazine. Speed
we had,
participated in
we
this.
we had Bob on there as well, who owns a marketing consultancy in Washington DC. So he's
Yeah,
a
Bob
an
Sprague.
NMRA member. That's right. Yeah.
Yep. So we had people who know the NMRA, people who know the hobby, and then also professionals who are used to dealing with this sort of project, which was tremendously helpful. Um, and throughout this process, of course, in the design process, you got to start somewhere, and taking this research and starting to turn it into visuals was an interesting process because people were not comfortable at the beginning with what was being shown and what was being come up with, because this was again kind of a fresh look and a fresh rethinking of things. Now, all of us have been involved in the NMRA for a long time and are used to the way things look, and we've come to build an identity with our relationship with the NMRA through the visuals. And here we have a group of designers who are taking a fresh look from the outside, and very objectively looking at the situation in order to um, come up with something that actually performs with the goals that we had. So again, some of those goals had to do with gathering everybody under one identity, so there was uniformity and understanding that the NMRA was with all the divisions and regions all over the world. But then we also wanted to appeal to not only our members but to new potential members, and specifically younger members and people who may already be interested in trains, maybe through train spotting, train watching, um, or people who maybe don't have any connection with the hobby whatsoever. So we wanted something that would appeal to that audience, something that was very clean and understandable. Transparency is one of the big kind of efforts of Gordy and everybody in the NMRA right now, is to say, hey, we're not hiding anything from you. We're making these changes. We've listened to you, and here's our honest efforts. Here's what we're doing, and here's how we're doing it. So hence, this research document we've put up on nmra.org, uh, that you can go through and you can look at, everything that we looked at, and was part of the process to come up with the logo. So the logo itself and the branding and the implementation also wanted this sort of clarity, also wanted this sort of nod to a transparent process, to being very genuine, to being unique, to something that would communicate very well to a bunch of different audiences. So that's
So,
what we're working
so,
with.
so Riley, before we jump into that, I think what we should do, we'll go to the NMRA website,
Okay.
which is still a work in progress. I know there's going to be questions around that, which we can talk through around process, and just show everybody where they can get all of the materials that we're going to talk about in the presentation. And we'll show everybody again at the end as a reminder. So we'll show you this twice. So it's not a test of knowledge, but if I go to the home page of nmra.org as this loads, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a new page been added here under about the NMRA promotional materials. Now, the key bit is previously, in the previous rebrand from 2011, all of the promotional materials were behind the member wall. We've made everything available to the public so everybody can see all of this and can use it, can understand it. The hope, therefore, is that if you've got an NMRA sponsored event like an RPM, which the majority are sponsored by the NMRA, you can adopt the branding and put our branding on your event to show the sponsorship and stuff like that, just to try to make sure we're using that branding more. If you look at the document we just showed you, you'll see there's lots of stuff on there that I can't remember exactly how many there are, but there are a significant number of logos that maybe don't even mention the NMRA, and then there's another load of logos that don't really reflect the NMRA look at the moment at all in the past. So anyway, moving on, we'll talk about what we're going to do about that in a second. But you come to this page, promotional materials for 2026. Which again in 2025, like Riley's invented a time machine, right? This is awesome. So anyway, you can come to this page and you've got all the information. There's a frequently asked questions section, which I suggest you go to. And if there's a question or not answered on there that you have, email us. We'll give the email addresses out at the end, and we will answer the question and add it to the list. This is a working document. And then you've got all the branding research there that we just talked about. You've got the brand graphic standards, which I think is where Riley's going next. You've got the marks that you can actually download and the secondary mark that you can download in high resolution. And we'll show you those as well, because I want to show you that there's some without backgrounds. I know that's a key thing that people, I can't get rid of the background. There is versions without the background in there. So it doesn't have to be like white in a big box or anything like that. And then we've got the fonts and things on there as well. So here's the new primary word mark as well as examples below, but we're going straight over to the graphic standards. Right, Riley, take it away.
Yeah, so this is something that is new to the NMRA. This is a very standard practice for organizations, corporations, any sort of group that has a unified brand. It's the Graphic Standards and Brand Identity Guide. So a collection of what the logos are, what the implementation of the logos are on individual items, and how you treat this logo in different situations, and more importantly, how you don't treat them. So if you go to the next actually visual, there's some text in here, some guidelines about how to actually work with the identity, and then the identity itself. And this is where the inspiration for the mark came from. This is a pretty straightforward um, uh, kind of visual appropriation of what the idea of a rail car or a locomotive or something that is on rails actually looks like. So the idea was to grab those things, take the NMRA and these letters, this typeface that was chosen, that would symbolize the kind of solidity, the movement, have the wheels on there as kind of a humorous little nod to the playfulness of what all of our endeavors at the NMRA are here to support, but create a very strong, um, solid, modern, clear indication of the NMRA, and then to have this little playful tweak of the wheels. And so you see the next page um, shows that this translates very directly into this idea of the NMRA, and I think this is a good capture of kind of that combination of credibility, which the NMRA has and will continue to have with its relevance and with its uh, looking at standards and conformance testing and all of that, that this brand has to say this is a serious organization. But at the same time, it's wrapped around basically a recreational activity, something that is fun. We're out playing with trains, and so the wheels are just a nice little nod to the fact that we don't take ourselves that seriously, right? We do serious stuff, but this is for support and for increasing the enjoyment of basically playing with trains. So I think this is a really simple, really clear, really straightforward way to encapsulate a lot about what the NMRA is. And so, yeah, the next couple of pages are showing kind of how this appears in different colors. So the main mark is the red on the deep violet or the eggplant color on the top left. That's our main color combination and is something that, especially the red, shows up as our primary way of speaking the NMRA as an official look, an official logo, and identity for the organization. Then we have some secondary color combinations. And these color combinations, again, are still official marks, but they can be used in different applications depending on maybe what's appropriate for a different situation. Simply having something that is a different color, that is a little bit of a different look. Again, one of the goals of this was to create a visual identity that spoke to the idea of the big tent, to the welcoming of a bunch of different ways of playing with trains. So different scales, different prototypes, different countries. We needed to find a way to show that the NMRA is coming to you, is coming to whatever it is that is important for you in the hobby, and serving everybody as uh, a big organization, a big tent. And so these different colors are one way of showing that there is there's flexibility, there's these different looks that can show up in different places. But again, that strong NMRA with the wheel sets on them is easily identifiable and marks it as something that's officially NMRA. So the next page has our secondary mark. So when there's a need to actually spell out National Model Railroad Association, so perhaps on letterhead or things where people are seeing this logo for the first time, the secondary mark is a way of spelling out what NMRA is for people who don't know, and still being a part of the entire identity. So one of the key things, you can go to the next page, Gordy. One of the key things that our branding company, Foda Studio, realized was that people really identify with the initials NMRA. People don't go around saying National Model Railroad Association. But in the hobby, if you say NMRA, people know what you're talking about. So it's very much like IBM, where people don't go around saying International Business Machines. It's now the identity is now tied to the initials, and so we're leaning into that and playing up on that. But again, this is available in those instances where we need it. And of course, the circles, the wheels, come into play here as well as a way to tie those things together and to be a little bit playful. Next slide, showing those with the different color combinations. It's very important that these color combinations are used um, whenever these alternate colors show up. These were created specifically to have legibility and to have a relationship with the background color as well. Next page. So also there's something that's very important in this exercise is to show how the NMRA logo should not be used. This is not something where you just get it and you just start creating your own ideas about what it should look like, stretching it to fit a space, or sticking it in a box or changing the color. All of those things are not what one should do with this new logo. Um, next page. And here's a little bit about kind of how to start to employ the logo. So there's this sheet, and if you go through the next couple of pages, there are other instances of kind of what the spacing is and how these lockups, which are the combination of the logo with the regions or the division logos, how these should be spaced out and how they should be worked. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to provide the original artwork for these. And help with anything that you might need in order to get this usable for you all. So we're going to be supplying the raw file, and then you can make the changes for your individual thing, and we can help you with that if you need that help. So the
Yeah, and
regions. Oh, go ahead, Gordy.
and Riley, on this one, the view that we're looking at just now, this is how any organization that's affiliated with the NMRA can identify itself, even national committee level. So it could be achievement program underneath NMRA. It could be standards and conformance. It could be your Lansing Model Railroad Club. It could be any any subdivision of the N Scale Events Group, for example. It could be any subdivision of the NMRA down to the lowest level that you wish to do, can use this version with just the NMRA logo over the top to show affiliation, to show you're part of the big tent. And there's another version we're just about to come on to with where you could use your current logo, incorporate your current logo into this. But yeah, this isn't just for regions. This isn't just for divisions. This is for every sub denomination of the NMRA, so that you can all show that you are part of the NMRA. So just wanted to make clarify that. And then the key bit on this is what's not here. The intention is not to have a list like a North Korean general of different organizations that you're badged to under the NMRA logo. So you can't just like do a General Zukov and flip out a pad with all your name tags on it. That's not the intention of this either, is it? So this should just be one set of text under the NMRA logo. So sorry.
Although, how
Let's
cool
go.
would that be, Gordy, if you could just like flip out a bunch of credentials? walking around. That'd be
It looked
great.
like my badge would look like Princess Diana's train at a wedding. So let's not let's not do that.
Uh,
Okay, so
to
then
the
we
next
got
page. Yep.
divisions. So let's talk about divisions.
So the divisions, again, the idea is to bring all of our different levels and organizations and groups together under this one big umbrella of a unifying identity. But that's not to say throw away your division logo. By no means are we asking you to do that. What we are looking for is how to incorporate this so that there is uniformity and that there is a sense that everybody is belonging to the same organization. So here's some examples of different colors, different graphics and everything that can happen at the division level, and how they could translate into something that is kind of more within the palette and more within the graphic language of the identity. And so these get put into these lockups with the NMRA logo. And here we're showing the division logo in the center and then the mid-central region. The idea is not to have the region logo so that, again, we don't have that kind of cascading uh, um, conglomerate of logos that go all the way down to your stomach. But the idea here is to show everybody that's involved. It's all encapsulated into one clear, identifiable system.
And
So go on to the next one.
the region logos is the one that we just showed. That whatever the region logo was previously on January the 1st, the region logo is the NMRA logo with the name of the region underneath. So that's just so everybody's clear on that. It's divisions that can and clubs that keep their logos if they wish to, or they can modify or they can move forward. But we'll work with you to get the lockup correct. So this is another example. This is the South Suburban division in the Rocky Mountain region as well. This the problem. It's worth just commenting on this one. I'm going to go back
Mhm.
one page. So what we found when we did our research into this is a lot of your divisions. Some are just photographs of a patch. No one's got the original artwork, and so this South Suburban division logo here was actually recreated by the design team at Foda Studio, so that we could use it in the brand guide as an example and monocolor it. And so that is a problem that we may run into, but we'll be working with divisions in the new year to get this right to be what you want it to be. If you want to include your logo here, or you want to just do something similar to the region logo, um, which works quite well for divisions like New Zealand, for example. This is its own country now. You can have NMRA New Zealand. We just adopted NMRA Scotland, so we can do something like that rather than NMRA Scotland, British region, blah blah. So there's the CID is the Central Indiana Division in Indianapolis. Well, essentially we're Indiana, and they're in the Midwest region. Right, CID on its own, you wouldn't know what that was. Anyway, so CID may choose to not have Midwest region. They may want to say Central Indiana division or something underneath there. So
And I think
and then
it's
here's
worth noting that we're not asking the divisions to get rid of their logos. I've had some panic emails where people are asking if they can wear their old shirts, and it's like, of course you can. This isn't a wiping the slate clean. It's just about getting everybody under the same look and feel, so that it looks like we all belong together.
and the railroads patch all the time. So
Yeah.
we in the British region, for example, I was at the region convention a few weeks ago, and we had a good chat with the board of directors. We intend to patch some of the current marketing collateral in the British region so that it looks like a railroad car for a few years, while we just naturally replace it because it's brand new. So we'll apply some patch jobs to it. It'll look fine. It's because we can patch over the entire top of the banner, and they'll look great. So there are options. There are definitely options. But this is the region logos. So the region logos will not appear under the NMRA logo that is in the current region logos. The region logos will look like the ones on the top line here. There's 18 regions, and they will all be the same in the four colors. um, and then here's an example. If if Division 8 is watching, which I'm sure they are, you have the three different options of lockup that you could choose as a division or a club or a committee or what, insert whatever. You can have your logo and the region name, your logo and the division name. You could have just the logos, the two logos together. You could have just the division name. You could drop the logo off here and put the logo somewhere else. So if it was a shirt, you could put NMRA on the right and put the logo on the left, whatever. Um, there are options. We'll come on to that, I think. So the typography. So there are three typefaces, aren't there, Riley? The primary typeface for the NMRA, the OT format display, is actually the typeface that's used to create, in part, to create the actual main NMRA logo, and it really should only be used for that. It's not the intent isn't to really use this heavily elsewhere. There is another font for that, and it's called Knuckle, which is great. It's just a fluke. Just a fluke that happened, was not intentional, but it's called Knuckle, and we've provided links for people to be able to download the Knuckle font. As long as you're using it for NMRA purposes, it's covered. We've licensed it for that use. So there are lots of different styles of Knuckle font. There's obviously regular, bold, semi-bold, and medium. Play around with it. You can color the font in the different colors that you want. And there's some guidance there around what primary text should be and what bold weight should be in. And the NMRA is moving to Google Workspace for national, and we'll be cascading that down to regions. We'll consider how much use there is at regional level before we cascade it down any further, but we'll build templates and letterheads and things like that, which we can then share those out with you. So you can use Google for free in Google Docs, etc., and use the same template. So we'll make this available and show you how it should be used as we go through the transition period. Um, it's just some examples. If you've never seen a brand guide before, these are just examples of how to use the font, where what works and what doesn't, where it's been messed around with. Right, then there's the web safe typography. So because we're using Google Workspace in national, and because we've got websites and things like that, we need to have a HTML font that will work on the web. Knuckle is a font that will work in word processing programs like Microsoft Office and other things. But Manrope is a type font, a third tertiary type font that can be used in Google Workspace. It can also be used um, on the web. So it's very, very similar to Knuckle. I'm not going to tell you the difference. You can go and look at it, and you can work it out if you're a bit of a printer. But to normal people, it's not much different. And again, Knuckle's available in Medium and different things like that. So you can add it as an extension into Google Workspace. So anyway, colors are really important, right? And Gordy's colorblind, as people have pointed out in a few emails that I've received recently. I am colorblind, but colors are really important, and I think we should just stop and dwell and explain this. Riley, I'll pass it back to you.
Yes. So these colors were very carefully chosen throughout the process and refined into what you see here. And specifically, the idea that these colors, the primary colors in the circles, go with the background colors. So these colors can work on in white or sometimes on black or things like that if there's an application like that. But the idea is to have these paired so that that identity carries through into the background. So especially on websites or digital materials, this works out really well. I will say that we have found a mistake here in this color palette. Our CMYK colors are actually an older color set. So the designers are working to correct those right now. We've had a few people notice this during implementation, especially we've been working on the magazine, and it was like, hey, these colors, like they keep flipping back and forth, and they weren't matching up. And so we discovered there was an issue, a typo there. So that'll get cleaned up, and we'll post the new one.
So let me try and explain this in simple terms that I use, because I am quite a simple person. So basically, the background color on the left here is our isn't the primary background with the red, but it's the primary dark background that people can use as a universal background. And on the right there, it's white. And if the color is, these are the primary colors, the dots. Those four primary colors can be used with the background that they're on in the brand guide here, or with one of the backgrounds on the left or the extreme left or the extreme right of this page. We'll show you that in a second. Black, though, should only be used on white, because if you use black on black, you ain't going to see it. Yeah. So that means you can use the red on the dark or on the white or on the maroon. I call it maroon, but whatever color that is. You can use the yellow on the greeny color or on the dark color or on the white, the blue on the green, or the blue on the dark, or the blue on the white, and the green on the white, the cream, or the dark. Right. And so as we go to the next page, this is just another the logos again that we showed you earlier on their correct official primary backgrounds. And then here's the two secondary backgrounds I just talked about, the one that was on the extreme left and the one that was on the extreme right, which is white, right? So the colors of the main primary fonts can be used here. What you shouldn't do is go and use one of the background colors and make the logo or the text or anything appear in that color. A background color is a background color. But for printing things off, of course, white is a lot less expensive on the ink. But we did two versions of the Vision document recently. The Vision 2035 was done as a digital version in a dark background, and it was done in a light version as a PDF for people to print off. So we're using black and white. It's just pretty straightforward. It's easy to make something go monocolor very easily. So you can do it all colorful, and then you just go print PDF and choose monochrome as your settings, or black and white, and it'll just change it. Okay, sorry, Ryan. So that's the key. That's probably the thing I've been asked the most about is the colors and the combinations of the colors. So pages in the brand guide, page 29, 28, 27 is 26 is your key pages for that. Okay, so this is cool. These are all the assets that are currently being made, and there's over 100 different designs, isn't that right? Something like that on the list.
Getting there,
It's
yeah.
crazy.
hmm So
So
I think this is what's different from just redoing the logo to redoing the branding. So Foda has gone through and helped us implement the identity of the logo throughout all of these different materials. So here are some of the printed materials. You'll see how they show up on the membership forms, on letterhead, business cards, things like that. Then next, I think we have probably merchandise. Yes. So lots of new merch coming for the NMRA. T-shirts, polos, sweatshirts, hats. Stickers were already done for Train Fest, and I think those were really popular. So just an indication of how this can through items.
I'll show you this. I'll show everyone the stickers. I've got them. Also, just to point out before somebody says it in the comments, we have resolved the error on the 187 T-shirt. It'll be 187.1. So just so everyone's clear, it will be corrected on the HLT shirts, and we're hoping that these will be available to order online at the end of January for the Amherst show. We might have some examples. So, but yeah, cool. You can zoom in on those at your leisure if you go to the promotions page. So the NMRA calendar for 2026, people will start to receive that here really soon in the United States, and that's got a really different look and feel. And you kind of played with the logo and the year a little bit with keeping the logo across it. I really like the way that you guys have done that. I think, yeah, definitely really cool. Good use of the logo. Then the NMRA magazine's going to change, and I think that's from the next issue, which will be January, right? So on
Yep.
December the 15th, you'll be able to see the new look and feel of the NMRA magazine. You've probably seen us starting to move things over, like the e-bulletin and the turntable, to some greater or lesser extent. We're in a transition period, folks. Things are not going to be perfect the first time that we do everything. It's not going to be perfect. That's an unrealistic aspiration, although we're all perfectionists. We'd love that to be the case. But yeah, the NMRA magazine, Cynthia's been involved in the project from day one, so I'm excited about this. I'm really excited. I want to show everyone the bit that I'm most excited about with this, right? So the bit that I am the most excited about is that if you are getting your MMR shortly, and you're going to write your MMR article, and Gordy still needs to do his, then now MMRs are going to pretty much get a full page spread, and like it's going to be in the core color. It's going to be all in that nice color. It looks really, really good. It's completely different. I mean, print that off and put it on your wall. I mean, it's brilliant. It just looks so much neater and tidier and much nicer magazine format for us going forward. Much more in 2025. So yeah, it's
Definitely
going to look
frameable.
cool. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And I thought, Gordy, you're going to say the most exciting part was your column going from 2 pages to 1 page.
Well, there'll be some people sad and there'll be some people happy. So it's a divisive subject, you know. It's a divisive subject. I haven't tried that yet. I'm going to be trying that here in the next few days to see how we can shrink that in. But there'll be some people pleased about that and some people not so pleased. And I feel for poor Cynthia, who's probably going to have to start cropping my stuff, and we're going to have some teething issues as Gordy writes too much and Gordy writes too little. But yeah, no, absolutely. So some of this stuff will get a little bit shorter to allow, which gives us more article space, which is exactly what we want. So.
Right.
And if you're listening to this and you've not written an article for the NMRA magazine, please think about it. We've not got long, so we need to just move on. So there's other things at the bottom of the standards guide that will be coming available. What we will do is we will add back to this promotions page, which you can go directly to, or you can just get from the About Us section of the website. We'll be adding more collateral to this as we go. So I just want to talk about the rollout timeline here. This is really important, and this is aspirational. We should hit it. We may slip it. We'll see. But certainly, just like a train leaving the station or NMRAx, we won't go ahead of schedule in theory. So we won't be earlier than the dates that are set here. So we launched on November 1st at Trainfest in Milwaukee. Um, we are working on we're working still on the national brand transition. We're working on the regional brand preparation as well right now. Riley's got a lot of logos to make. But we're still working through the teething issues of things like the turntable that you've probably all seen the turntable go out recently, and there's still some things we need to tweak there. The website is a clear and obvious one that we're working on quite hard. Even I'm involved in helping speed with the website. Everybody's on board with that on deck. So we're getting that done. From the 1st of January, we'll start with the region brand launch. So already the British regions moved over. Some divisions have started to move over and adopt the new branding, which is great to see. And we encourage you to do that. And we will be available, though, from the 1st of January to start helping with Q1 transition of the digital brand. So we're meeting with the region presidents at the beginning of December, and then we'll be seeking division contacts through the regions in Q1. So if we don't phone you up on January the 2nd, don't be surprised, but we'll be working with the divisions so that by April 1st, all divisions will have adopted the new brand. All regions will have adopted the new brand, and the current NMRA logo from January the 1st is not authorized to be used or put onto any new material. So it's not to be on websites, it's not to be on social media, and that includes any of the previous logos for the NMRA as well. So that's wheel and coupler gone as well. And we're not saying that you can't wear the stuff that you've already got. What we're saying is we don't make any more of it, basically. So yeah, I think that's us pretty much on time. It's like 44 minutes past the hour there. And we won't show you. Should we just? Yes, we'll just show you the stickers. Look at these. These are awesome. So these are die cut stickers that we had available in the 4 colors. We ordered enough for Trainfest and Springfield, and now we're reordering for Springfield. So for the online haters out here that are calling this some kind of Oktoberfest logo, extremely popular with the actual people that saw it in the flesh. So there's always people have opinions and everyone's entitled to them, but it doesn't make it right. Though the other thing as well is if you go to the link that we sent, this isn't going to load now for me, is it? You on the page, you go to the logo links. The logo is available on the backgrounds, but also as transparent. If you go to the white versions of the logo, they're pretty much transparent with backgrounds removed, so you can use those if you want to pop them over a picture or something like that, a photograph and things like that, as opposed to having them as a block. Otherwise, you kind of got the color and it might not match what background you're putting it on. So there we go. I shall stop the share. And we've got any questions at speed?
There's quite a few questions. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, first one regarding the process. Were there any focus groups that looked at the new logo for feedback?
Yes, starting with our own committee. And a quick story with that is that not everybody liked this when we first saw it. This was something that we, again, had to shift our thinking from what we're used to with the logo and the look of the NMRA to this more modern, streamlined, aspirational logo. But by the end of the process, people on the committee were like, "Yeah, this is great." We showed it to people in the hobby press. We showed it to some prominent model railroaders, some influencers. We did a podcast
Manufacturers.
recently.
We
Manufacturers,
went manufacturers as
vendors.
well. Manufacturers, vendors, model train stores, people outside of North America and inside of North America. Yes, but we couldn't get 15,000 opinions and collate them. It just wouldn't work. You know, it's just sorry. It just doesn't work like that. The world unfortunately doesn't work like how some people think it could or should have worked. But yeah, we had a huge number of people that this was engaged with before we even showed them a logo, and also throughout the entire process, colors, logo. It's not a re-logoing; it's a rebranding. They've seen everything, so yeah.
Okay, so the next question I think was written down somewhere, keeping with transparency. How much did the NMRA spend on the rebranding slash logo with the consulting group, and who paid for that?
Well, the
So
NMRA paid. Well, so the NMRA paid for it. So go on, Riley. You talk about the thing, and I'll talk about where the money came from. That's fine.
This job normally would cost about 120 to 150,000 hiring a branding firm. Because of personal connections and being a nonprofit and kind of the friends and family discount, we paid $60,800, I believe, for this work. So it wasn't just the logo redone, being redone. It was the entire implementation of all those different things that you saw for $60,000, which is an absolute bargain.
And I think it's worth saying this project, if you go into the materials, the project started 2 years ago, nearly now, 21 months ago. And for the first half of that time was all volunteer led. The volunteer hours into this project is way into the thousands of hours. And there's the value on that, it far exceeds what we paid the branding agency. What we did here is we had a hybrid approach. We brought in the people with the expertise, which we all think we're designers. Sorry, we're not. And we all think AI can do everything. Sorry, it can't. We had to bring the experts in to do the bits that the experts can do, and that's what we did. We did everything else ourselves, and we are now in a process of doing a lot of this stuff ourselves to be very, very cognizant of the fact that we don't want to spend the organization's money where we don't need to. But some things, unfortunately, you have to spend money on. Now, where did that money come from? The money did not come from the membership fees that people pay. It came from surpluses that the organization has set aside for projects such as this from our investments that we make. So I want to be very transparent and very clear here. You can go to the NMRA website and you can see the budget. No one previously has put the budget online. This board and this executive committee under my leadership chose to put the budget online 3 years ago. We put the 990s online. We're very transparent about where we spend money and where the money comes from. So it's all there. You can go to nmra.org and you can read it and you can see it. And the investments is with the stock market and the strength of the stock market. We had more surpluses than normal, and it goes into that fund, and we keep money set aside every year. The NMRA for many years has not been completely operationally run each year from the dues that it collects. And if you see from Vision 2035, we want to do more with less. We want to do more with investments and less with relying on people paying membership fees in the future, which will reduce your membership fee. So that's basically where it came from. That's how we fund this and other projects as well, so that we can develop standards and support standards of performance, as well as other investments that we make to grow the organization. Speed, next question.
Just a note on that, if you're looking for the financial information, that same bottom in the footer part where you can see the promotional materials, the first link in every footer says about the organization or organization and structure. When you click on that, on the right-hand side in the secondary menu, you will see things like the governing documents, where our CPPM/PPPM is, and then further down in that list is the financial portion of the website. So click over
Yeah.
there, and you'll get the information Corey's talking
And
about.
go find for me other model railroad organizations in the world that publish their budget. It's I can count them on one hand. So
Okay, we
yeah.
answered the next one by showing the timeline, but someone did ask when will my region and division or club need to change over to the new logo?
So let's cap it again. 1st of January for regions, or before the 1st of January, on or before the 1st of April for divisions of 26.
And then big question, how do I get help with a division logo?
So
Contact.
pubs, which is a great British email address,
Yep.
pubs@nmra.org will come straight to Riley. If you can't remember that, everybody remembers me. You can email me and I'll pass it down the chain. It goes into Riley. Just be mindful of the timeline that we said. Like, don't expect a phone call on January 2nd. Don't expect us to be reaching out and doing it. We'll acknowledge, we'll receipt, but it's going to be that time frame is allotted. The current time frame where we are right now in the next 5-6 weeks remaining of 2025 is prepared. Regions are the priority and the national is a priority, but divisions will become our priority on the 1st of January.
And I
And if
appreciate your patience for my getting back to you as well. I've got a day job as well, so.
and if you
Yeah.
forget Riley's name, that same organization and structure link, if you click on that, you'll get all the people that get voted in, and you get all the people that are department heads. Both me and Riley are listed there.
Yeah. And all
Okay.
three of us have day jobs, just so everybody knows.
Yep.
Okay, so is there a document available for creators of NMRA websites and smartphone apps that goes a bit more in details than the graphic standard?
There is not, unfortunately. Our kind of next round for the NMRA national website is to redesign that in the near future. So possibly something coming out of that and how we are working with Google and all that sort of thing down the road.
Okay,
But
is there
look, I would open people to make suggestions like that to us of what you would like to see,
Mhm.
and we will make sure then it goes on. We've got a board that we're using for the project. We've used it for 20 months, and we'll add it to the list of things that people would like to see, and we'll work towards doing that. Any new assets that become available, we'll be dumping them. We'll probably do a major dump of of assets on very shortly because we're ordering things and finalizing things for national. We'll add them to that promotions page, and we'll probably let you know through the bulletin or some other means that we've added some stuff there. But check back to that page, and we'll add stuff as we go.
Yeah, great
So
idea though.
is there
yeah.
a formal review process for NMRA websites and smartphone apps?
There's not a formal review process. Uh, I think these are, these are guidelines, these are standards, just like if you were building a model and whatnot. I think if there's some issues, if there's some problems or whatnot, we can help with those. Um, and I think if there's something that's being done obviously wrong, we will probably help you get to where you need to be.
Yeah, I will use the same words as Forward Studio did to us. We will look at anything. We will do our best to help. That's the best thing that we can do. But help may need to wait because we've got 200 divisions. We've got to get you a logo. Primary thing for every division is every division needs a logo. That's the primary, the lockup doing. That's the number one phase for this. So
Okay, two more questions. The next one, I am biased, so I cannot answer. Is there any plan to get a lighter theme on the website?
yes, there is. Me and Speed are working on it. We were talking about it just last night. So the website will be adopting more of the cream and green and less of the maroon or burgundy and red. And me and Speed are going to be working on that imminently in the next few weeks. But
Well,
you know,
I'm going to say that you might wake up tomorrow morning and it's light.
No.
So,
yeah, but I will under promise and over deliver always, Speed. So that's great.
But I think the point here is that we had an old website. We're trying to band-aid the colors and whatnot. Didn't work out. People complained. We listened, and we're responding as quickly as we can, maybe even as early as tomorrow. So I think that's just indicative of this whole process. Is that it's not that we left anybody out. It's that we're listening to everybody who has an opinion and has ideas and whatnot, and we're responding to them as best as we can and as fast as we can.
okay, one more question. When can we expect to see Gordy's MMR article? And then as a part two, where's Riley's?
I think those were questions from Speed.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna keep you wait. I'm gonna keep you waiting a bit longer, just because I have to write so many other articles. I owe
Well,
Cynthia 2 articles tomorrow.
and if Gordy would quit assigning me projects like this, then I could get my MMR.
Yeah, I know that feeling, buddy. I know that feeling. So yeah, and if you're listening to that and you're like, "Oh, I feel so sorry for you three guys," then never a good time not to volunteer for the NMRA. We're always happy, and you know, if you think you could have added some value to this project if we'd known to ask you, then still, again, please come forward. If you've got graphic skills, if you've got illustrator skills, if you've got web design skills, if you in fact, if there's someone listening that is willing to give me free user experience services for web design and product design, me and Speed will bite your hands off. So, you know, and everyone on the national team will. The department heads are on the website. Reach directly out to the department heads and volunteer now. We have grown the national volunteer team over the last 4 years massively. Absolutely massively. Andy Zimmerman in Standards of Conformance has tripled the size of the Standards of Conformance team. We're engaging with manufacturers on your behalf as model railroaders more than we've ever done. So, you know, we can only do that with more volunteers. So, you know, please do get in touch if you think you've got some skills that you can help with.
Okay, so in closing, thank you very, very much for something that I assume everybody would find enlightening and helpful and answered some questions. I do believe that Brad has a little video for us for the people I interviewed during the Oklahoma City Train Show. And so, Brad, if you can play that, take it away.
It's very cute.
You like it?
Yes, it's perfect.
Cool. Morning.
Good morning.
How do you like the new logo?
I really like it.
You do?
It's modern, and I think it.
Good morning. How do you like the logo?
I like the logo. It's nice. It's a nice change. But, you know, I know there's growing pains and things like that, but for the most part, I like it.
Thank you. Good morning. How do you guys like the new logo?
Yeah.
Approve? Good morning. How do you like our logo?
I love it, man.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How do you like the new logo?
I love it. It's perfect.
Have you seen it before?
No.
On first sight, that's what you like?
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
How do you like our new logo?
I love it. It's very cute.
You like it?
Yes, it's perfect.
Cool. Morning.
Good morning.
How do you like the new logo?
I really like it. I
You
think
do?
It's modern, and I think it expresses how the NMRA is back on rails, moving forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Have you seen the new logo?
Oh, yes.
You like it?
Oh, absolutely love it. Yes.
Thank you.
I love the design of it.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good.
Have you seen the new logo?
I have.
You like it?
Yes.
Why?
That must be a brand new shirt.
Of course it is.
It's a brand new logo.
You like it?
I do.
Thank you. Hi there, how are you?
Well, hello.
Are you having fun here?
I am having a great time.
Any chance you might have seen this logo before?
I saw it when I was reading the latest issue of the magazine.
And?
I love it. I think it really, I love the wheels. It catches it. It makes it look like it's trains. Come on.
Thank you.
I mean, good job, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Excellent.
Have you seen the new logo?
Yes, I love it.
You do?
Yes.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
The logo's great.
I gotta record first. Go.
The logo's great.
No, now it looks staged. Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good.
Have you seen the new logo?
Yes.
You like it?
Yes.
How much you like it?
10 out of 10.
Thank you. Welcome back to the second clinic of NMRAx November edition. I'm Speed at the bottom of the helix. Our next clinician is a retired systems engineer and a lifelong tinkerer, now building historical New York City in N-scale and digital experiences in iOS and Android. Still running, modeling, coding, and curious. He lives in Manhattan, is a member of the NMRA Sunrise Trail Division and the Manhattan Modelers. Today he's going to tell us about building a industrial structure using a laser cutter. Please welcome Andreas Werder.
Thanks, Speed. Hi, everyone. Let me add a few more details about myself. I live in New York City. I'm surrounded by a lot of spectacular architecture and a lot of history here in New York, railroad related or not. That's why I model railroads in New York, preferably between 1930 and 1950. And over the years I've been living here, I have developed a love for urban architecture and structures. The downside of living in Manhattan is that I live in an apartment and I have limited space. That's why I model in N-scale. So everything I'm talking about is about a model in N-scale. My current model railroad project is a New York Central West Side inspired prototype freelance layout located in the West Chelsea area. It includes both sections of the High Line and some street level track. Many of us have built structures or even railroad car based on laser cut kits. We love custom striped siding for a boxcar, a caboose, or a wooden shed. But laser cutting can go further, can give us more. Lesser known materials allow us to push the limits of the more traditional materials. This clinic explores how a laser cutter can help to model structures beyond a wooden shack. I'm using one of the models I built a while ago for my West Side and New York Grand Central Railroad layout as an example. How did I get into laser cutting? A couple of years ago, I set out to model a highly prototypical structure for my N-scale C&J Bronx terminal. I initially planned to kit bash the model, but quickly realized that the number of kits required would make the project very, very expensive. I first tried to laser cut my own walls. And when this worked out, I also managed to get the large metal windows reasonably well. And that's what was when the kit bashing idea ended and the scratch building project began. For a while, I outsourced my laser cutting, but then got tired of the delays, and that eventually led me to purchase my own 30-watt laser, desktop laser. Here's what I found over the last couple of years about laser cutting. What's good, but there might be also limits. First, precision of cutting is just unmatched. You can't match that with manual cutting. You can engrave complex textures and photos. You may not have to buy your sheets, your texture sheets. You just produce them yourself with a laser cutter. You can combine diverse materials, textures, and colors. It's a great satisfaction of creating your own kit, then assembling it. The process is iterative, so you can make mistakes. We always make mistakes, but you can fix it because you build your own kit, right? So you can recreate individual parts that don't work and redesign the whole thing and improve the whole model. You can design anything to match prototypes accurately, at least almost. And then the last point is 2D CAD software is easier to learn than three-dimensional CAD for 3D printing. So if you want to 3D print, but you think it's too complicated, then consider laser cutting as an alternative because it only requires 2D CAD systems. Now, there is also a downside. Cutting and engraving requires 2D CAD drawings, which require, again, planning, and that may be a time-consuming process. You can't just sit down on the computer and start designing. You need to have measurements. Then laser cutters typically only cut a limited range of materials. For instance, if you want to cut metals, you can't use a CO2 laser. I'm talking about models here that structures that can be cut on or that use materials that can be cut on a CO2 laser. So if you do anything more sophisticated, like you're in motive power, scratch building, then you might need a different kind of laser and a different methodology. Then subtractive methods of cutting and engraving cannot match 3D rendering capability of 3D printing. So if you really want to create detailed parts in 3D with 3D printing, you can't use, obviously, laser cutting. Then laser cut projects always have two stages, building and assembling the kits. So it obviously takes longer, right? It can be a time-consuming process depending on the prototype. Then in some cases, also prototypical fidelity of model is constrained by the choice of materials. That's maybe not such an important factor, but it can happen. In summary, laser cutting and engraving is a great tool for the modeler who loves scratch building and prototypical or proto-freelance model building, but who is also prepared to go the extra mile for it. So let's look at the prototype. my clinic is about building a realistically looking model of an industrial structure. The way I deliver it is by talking about a very specific example of a structure that I did a while ago. I'll explain the process with that project rather than just talking about laser cutting as a technique in general. Over the next 40 minutes, you will see two types of slides. One type is about the story of me building the IRT powerhouse, and the second type about techniques and materials that are more general and apply not just to this model. As is the rule with NMRAx clinics, please save your questions to the Q&A at the end of the clinic. Speed and Brad will monitor the chat and will add them to the Q&A. Thank you. And here's the prototype, the Interborough Rapid Transit Powerhouse, a building located in Manhattan's Upper West Side between 11th Avenue and the West Side Highway, and between 58th Street and 59th Street. It was constructed in 1904 as the primary provider of electrical power for the New York City subway. It's a massive building, 200 feet wide along its principal elevation on 11th Avenue, and 800 feet long or deep along 58th Street and 59th Street. It houses the boilers, steam engines, and generators, and it generates power for the city's first subway system, which actually started also in 1904. By the way, coal for the steam engines was delivered in barges to a nearby pier at the Hudson River. The Hudson River is just behind the building. We don't see that here. So the railroad, the freight train you see at the right bottom is actually not here to deliver coal. Now, in terms of the architecture, the IRT powerhouse is a notable example of Beaux-Arts architecture in New York City. It's almost like a sister building to the Metropolitan Museum, which is just on the other side of Central Park. It's a little bit different, though. It is simpler. It is a beautiful architecture, but it is an industrial building after all. It features classical elements, brick facades, pilasters, friezes, and ornate detailing. I will all go in details about this. It also includes rich terracotta ornaments, which is very unusual here, at least for industrial buildings, and it has a beautiful cornice. A twin gable roof with a clerestory tops the building. Quite impressive. If you look at those numbers, 60 boilers, 10 steam engines, and 10 generators, and 5 smokestacks. Today, we'd call this a massively parallel system of machinery. Okay, next. I always use a checklist when I model, where I try to model a prototype, just to make sure that I get a realistic rendering of the prototype. First, I try to capture the building size, shape, and repetition. I'll try to catch a building's mass and dimension, its height and proportions. I make sure to get the large repetitive forms that create rhythm and visual order. Next, I get depth, create multiple planes of a facade, use maybe overlapping roofs, recessed walls, projecting pavilions, as we can see here in the case of the IRT powerhouse. Depth multiplies the perceived detail without adding actual parts. Then, of course, I use the surface textures from natural building materials like brick, tiles, shingles, stone, terracotta, corrugation. In New York City, even cast iron textures. Textures increase visual density for the viewer and create realism without excessive details. Next, seek micro variation and add random noise. Subtle weathering, rust pitting, mineral flecks, color tints add natural chaos. Randomness makes materials feel aged, used, and believable. Finally, use controlled interruptions with non-random detail to increase the interest. Add doors, vents, windows, signage, roof features, and deliberate visual anchors. Having all these criteria, do I ever reject the idea for a project because the model could end up being too boring? Yes, of course. But I think as models, we do this quite often. Here's a tip I want to share with you now. When I do complex structures, I usually create a proof of concept before going into the project. That gives me the certainty that it is feasible. I ask the question, does it work? Does it have the right amount of depth? Does it look real? Do I use the right materials? Is the result robust enough? Does my proof of concept scale? And is there an easier way to build it? These are fundamental questions that a proof of concept, like a small model of a facade, can do. Okay, now let's look at the first question, the first part of the checklist. Let's work out the size and the shape. Now, replicating a prototypical structure in a small scale requires making smart decisions about selective compression. There's no way we can build the entire structure in a limited space. And in this case, the prototype is 800 feet deep and 200 feet wide. I found on my layout an 8 by 11 inch large area on the west side of New York Central Railroad layout for that model. That's just a small fraction, but it's big enough for being able to create a good impression. I used the window bays along the front and on the side as a unit for selective compression. This resulted in 4 out of 6 bays at the front here and 2 out of 15 bays on the side. Even with a depth of 8 inches, the absence of a fourth facade, by the way, in the background, it does not have a facade in the background. It counts as a low relief building. What I also did was to move the front corner section on the side of the building to the back. So this part here would have been in the front and is now at the back. That's because I wanted to have the track that is visible on some of the photos. I wanted to have that in the track. I don't think that this really has an impact on realism. It's still realistic enough. It may just lower a little bit the prototypical fidelity, but that's acceptable. And one more detail here, if you have a unit like a window bay that you can replicate in a variable number, you can also get some wiggle room by varying the width of the unit, for instance, by squeezing the width of the bay or reducing the distance between the bays. Like in this case here, the two bays, it can be really squeezed and I could get like even more space. Here, this slide I have entitled as Laser Cutter Law of Repetition. That's just to show that once you have a model, a design, you can actually reuse it and can reconfigure in different ways. This is the rendering of a 29-inch long IRT powerhouse I built for Heath Hurwitz's River Transfer Shortline Railroad. I completely used my existing plans a year after I built my own copy. And I just reused those, the design, created a slightly different kit. The structure has 10 bays instead of the 2 bays of mine. And it is 4 inches wide, which makes it actually a background flat, even though it's still quite deep. Nevertheless, because of its length, it's quite impressive. Okay, next I'll talk about how to create depth. So we got the overall shape. Now, how do we get depth? The key here is using multiple layers or wall of materials if you want to obtain a good approximation of the prototype. The layers are the result of a decomposition process. Basically, you slice a facade in different slices or different layers, and then you design them in your CAD tool. I usually start with the layer that provides the most structural strength. In this case here, it's that orange piece made of, that's just like a single bay, right? So the diagram is simplified. That's made of MDF and it has the windows already in it. but on top of it is a softer layer, what I call the inner softer core, which carries the wall textures, either brick or then granite uh, lines, right? Then on top, the outermost structural layer is has the pilasters. It's the yellow part here, and there are a few more details that are even further out. They are being just applied on top of it. These are separately applied details like arched windows, brick insets, ledges, and cornices. And we also have one more layer inside, below the MDF layer. There's the inner core, and that is the window layer here with the green color. And then what you can also see is a perpendicular structure element, like bracing walls or floors that I usually add just because the tabs and slots allow me to make a perfect fit between the layers, because you can see actually the slots are replicated here in at least in 3 layers, right? That helps me to actually perfectly match when I glue the whole assembly for the facade. Next, I have to talk a bit about materials. I already mentioned in the previous slides some of the materials I used. Now I want to go a bit more into detail. This is like, again, a bit more general now. The choice of materials is primarily a function of suitability for laser cutting, and even more so for laser engraving. Of course, form like thickness can also be or has to be considered sometimes. There are 2 important properties for those materials. The one is how they cut and how they engrave. And note that these materials are just a subset of a whole universe of materials that can be used for laser cutting, except these are the materials that are the most popular for making for structural models. And a word on engraving. What is engraving? A laser cutter doesn't know if it's cutting or engraving. It just has 2 settings. It has a speed setting and it has a power setting. It's only the power and the speed setting that determines if a laser is actually cutting, if the laser beam is strong enough to make a cut, or if it's just leaving behind some traces that can be seen as engraved lines. So what is suitable for structural models? Of course, softer wood is better than harder wood. Engineered wood, plywood, MDF works very well. I use 1/16 inch. Why harder? Why is harder wood a bit not as suitable? Well, simply because you need multiple passes to cut it. Usually the laser may not be too strong, may not be strong enough, so you have to multiple passes, but that works. Low density wood, cellulose products, task board, chipboard, that works as well. Paper-based products can be used as well, like cardstock. Just be careful when you use higher power settings that you could create a fire hazard. What works very well is laser board. I will come back to this material in more detail. I use 11 to 35 thousandths of an inch thick laser board, and acrylic sheet is also a perfect material. It's available as colored sheets, and I use it in 1/16 in an inch, but it can also be used for, there's also 1/8 inch is thick acrylic that can be used for laser cutters. Then there are unsuitable materials for cutting, like most plastics, notably PVC and styrene, should not be used because of the toxic fumes. Metals are unsuitable for CO2 lasers. If you want to cut metal, if you are into motive power scratch building, then you would need a fiber laser. Composite materials, again, with non-laserable components like plastic, should not be used either. Note that all wood-based products show light edge burns depending on the hardness of material, but you can sand them down. Now, engraving. Most materials on the left side that are suitable for cutting are also suitable for engraving. In general, the softer the material, the more differentiated the engraving. Harder materials like MDF tend to react in an almost binary way. So either they get engraved or they don't. So you prefer for engraving softer materials like acrylic sheet, basswood works all well. The acrylic sheet specifically allows for almost like 3D engraving. In addition to suitability for cutting and engraving, other material properties must be considered, like the grain direction of wood, for example. Now, a word on surface textures related to the building here. This is a photo of the side of the IRT powerhouse. You can see that it has detailed, it has brick textures, it has granite slabs on the bottom. It's separated by a granite ledge here, which is about 1 foot thick. The brick is actually not the typical brick used in New York. It's called the buff Roman brick, which has a slightly creamy or yellowish color, tan color, which now appears more gray than tan. So between the granite blocks, as I said, there's a massive 1 foot thick ledge of granite. The granite has also mortar lines, which add to the texture here. What you can also see is details in terracotta, including the wreath here, the keystone on top of the arched window lintels, and also these floral ornaments on the pilasters. So this is everything of this I'm trying to replicate, and so because I need some really good materials here, I will explain them a little bit more in detail. The first one is laserboard. The laserboard is a resin impregnated craft paper or cardboard board. It's available in thicknesses from 0.3 to 1 millimeter or 11 to 35 thousandths of an inch. It's the material is used by cabinet makers, and it's known under the name of polyback. It's durable, flexible. It's easy to use, to cut. It is very compatible with other materials, can be glued with common adhesives like PVA. It bonds well with paint, and especially also acrylics or solvent-based paint. It's available in different shapes and colors. I use brown, white, black, and ivory. Some older products may contain formaldehyde. You have to check the quality before you purchase a product. The laserboard works well together with basswood, MDF, acrylic, or styrene for model making, especially in small-scale projects. And it's also available from online stores. As glue, I use Fowler Expert Laser Cut, which is a little bit hard to get here in the US, but it's a very good glue because it has a very fine applicator that makes it very suitable for small models. Next, the second material I want to explain is or show you a bit more in detail, is acrylic sheet, how I use that. It's easy to cut. It's you may have used it before for modeling too, and there are actually manufacturers that also offer models that are cut and engraved in acrylic sheets. It's also ideal for cutting and engraving. It cuts clean. It does not melt or warp easily, including it doesn't warp once it's been used in a model. It's cutting the acrylic sheets with laser products can produce some fumes. So cutting should also only done in well ventilated rooms like a garage or so. Acrylic sheets come in various colors, finishes, and levels of transparency. It's also available as clear or plexiglass. It provides a range of creative possibilities. It cuts clear, but the faces of the resulting curve are not perfect perfectly perpendicular, and there's a slight slant, which can be corrected. You can sand it down or file it down so that it is actually really 90 degrees. It's great for engraving in almost 3D quality. As glues, I use CA gel. You can also use solvent, cement, and you could even use PVA. Now, so I have talked about the material, I've talked about textures, etc. So let's look how that how the result is for the facade. I've now cut a few pieces, and we go through the individual pieces or the individual layers. I'm using the same colors I had in one of the previous slides. Let's start with the window layer here, green with a green bullet. All windows are cut into one laser board sheet. That's very important. I never make individual windows and insert them. You can certainly do that, but it's not practical. Cutting them into one sheet makes it very easy. You can glue it to the back of the inner harder core layer that actually reinforces the structure. Then what we see here is with the light blue color bullet separately applied details on top of the outermost layer. These are the arched window lintels with keystones made of acrylic. Same thing here. The transom here is a small piece of laser board that connects the lower ends of the arches to make them more robust, and also to give the capitals here at the end a bit more structure, or make them a bit more accentuated. Then we have the inner harder core layer up here, which is has the orange bullet, and the outer softer core layer with the textures. So here you see the brick textures, the parts that are hidden here that are not visible. Obviously, you don't add the brick textures because that would just add time for creating the engraving. You want to avoid that. You have the bricks here, and at the bottom you have the granite. You can also see that the basswood's fine-grained texture in the granite at the bottom provides some noise, which is, I think it's a good thing. It's a positive addition. Then the most spectacular parts here is probably the pilasters here, marked with a yellow bullet. As you can see, it's already a sub-assembly, and I actually added a horizontal bracing here, which is, in this case, on the top, it's the cornice. The cornice consists of several pieces that are glued together and are glued on top of this pilaster layer to make it stronger. There's a second one, a second horizontal ledge, or a frieze actually, again, that reinforces the pilasters, but it's a prototypical element. So I could use that architecture of the facade to actually help with to make the design of that usually pretty brittle layer, because it's a 1/16 acrylic sheet, to make that very strong. What you don't see here is there is one more piece here. That's the pilasters will be locked down into place at the bottom with a granite ledge, which I have not added, but that's here at the bottom. That's made of the granite ledge is a 1/8 inch thick piece of basswood, almost like a dowel, that goes across the facade and has slots in it so that it can lock down the foot of these pilasters. Okay, I think that's it about the cutting and engraving. I'm now going into more details of the individual elements here. I've talked in length already about the bricks, but maybe I just want to add one thing. If you consider the typical standard brick height is 2 inches and a quarter, that translates in N scale into something smaller than 1/2 millimeter, or like less than a 20 of a thousandth of an inch. That is not visible anymore. So I usually end up with bricks that are not smaller than half of a millimeter or 20 thousandths of an inch. I even have to prevent the lattice path optimization to create good linear patterns. It's actually not trivial to create brick patterns, brick textures. It took me a while to figure out the best configurations and the best pattern to get really good brick structures, brick structures or textures. And there is usually quite a good amount of waste produced. Then next, the arched windows in the middle and the friezes. The arched windows have prototype geometry simplified because it's just a bit too much, but it still reflects what you can see on the prototype. If you look at the third column here, the little photo, you can actually see it has some similarities, but I had to simplify it for N scale. In HO, you might get a more original, a better more realistic replication. The keystone, by the way, are cut from 2 layers of acrylic sheet, then laminated to achieve the necessary depth. And by the way, I'm always asked, are the keystones 3D printed? But of course they are not. It's just acrylic sheet, laser cut. Then the floral engravings on the pilasters. I did not create the geometric patterns for this. Instead, I used a different technique. I started with a prototype photo. I turned this into a black and white, then to a 1-bit grayscale, which is either black or white, and then I imported this into Inkscape. From this, then I scaled it down to N scale, and then I used a so-called trace bitmap function of Inkscape to generate a simplified vector online. That gives me these blue patterns here. They're not really a 100% reflection of the prototype. They're more like an aggregation, but they create the noise that is needed to really get like a similar, on a small scale, very realistic look or appearance. Once I have the vector outline, I delete the original image, and then I get these patterns here. By the way, you see the blue is there. Between the blue, you also have yellow patterns. Those are solid patterns that just with a stronger setting. The yellow is the stronger setting that just engraves more. It's a stronger power. It engraves more, as you can see, because pieces in the prototype where they are not, there's no terracotta in it, or actually slightly recessed. So that's why the stronger erosion through engraving. Of course, to create random noise, I'm also using painting and weathering. All surface elements are primed and painted before assembly. I usually, with this complex facades, I'm not painting on the model. I usually paint all parts separately. The bricks and granite blocks are washed after priming with black India ink to accentuate the color. Even though it's basswood, that works because, as I said, it's primed. Maybe sometimes I have to use a second prime layer of prime to make it really strong, so that the ink doesn't get fully absorbed. Then I dry brush with acrylic raw sienna for subtle warmth and to add tonal variation. For the final weathering, I apply pan pastels. I did not consider alternative methods to bring the texture closer to the more multicolored real bricks. You could actually use photos here of the prototype and inkjet print them on laser board or cardstock and use that as the outer layer. I've done that at least in 1 or 2 models, and it works very well, but I did not use this technique in this case. The windows are painted or spray painted with copper spray over the primer. to replicate the metal framing. As you can see, they're very fine. They have diagonal connectors, and the connectors are only about 12 thousandths of an inch thick. And they're very delicate, so they break very easily, especially when you try to assemble the subassembly, the facade, or put it onto the internal structure. That can happen, but what I usually do, I add a clear glazing on the back, and then I can use microcrystal clear glue to fix those delicate pieces. And if there's a missing or irregular connector, then that contributes to visual randomness and enhances realism. The pilasters here, you don't see them because they're hidden. They're not shown here. But what you see are these vertical slots here that are used to connect the internal structure to the facade, or the other way around, the facade to the internal structure. And then the pilasters actually would hide these connections. Next, we also, so I talked about random noise, but there's also non-random details that are important since they break up the rhythm. I've already talked about the windows. I think the only thing I could add here is they're easy to cut, and they're easy to make very prototypical because, and so if you ever want to consider to use a laser cutter, then this is probably the first thing you can do. You can try to create your own windows. And then there are details you don't even want to be disruptive on on like a facade, right? And corners are one of these kinds. How did I glue those brick walls together? Remember, I had two brick walls. I have 1/16 inch basswood, and on top of 1/16 MDF. So that's not easy to create a corner. So what I did, I used a dowel. I created that 1/16 by 1/16 inch thick dowels, of course, engraved on both sides. To avoid gaps between the dowel and the sheet, I carefully sanded the edges to make really the curves 90-degree. And then I glued the corner to one side of on the workbench to use a clamp, just to make sure that it's actually absolutely perfect. You can actually see that in the middle photo here. And you can also see, by the way, that that is like the middle photo shows a later version. This is the RTSL version I did a year after I did my first, the IRT Powerhouse for myself. You see that the brick textures are much better. This is also after I had a damage of my laser cutter, because bricks can be cut, or bricks engraving can be so erratic due to the optimization of the path that actually, in my case, it destroyed like one of the step motors, and I had to replace the step motors. But now I improved the way I created bricks, and so you can see that in the middle photo. Then the model has also some signage. It says just Interborough Rapid Transit Company, and I had to cut it from acrylic sheet, or it's actually a relief cut from acrylic sheet with the signs engraved. And it's a separate piece that's just engraved on the top of the parapet in the center of 11th Avenue. Okay, so we now have the facades. Basically, we have the envelope of the structure, but that's not all. We need more. What's next? First, building an internal structure. My models always have an internal structure because I want them to be stable. But I also want to have realistic internal lighting with rooms properly segregated and as light and light not bleeding, or light bleeding just as little as possible. A framework of longitudinal and lateral walls interlocked with the bottle plate and floors provides usually internal strength, as you can see in the photo here. Walls and floors should follow the prototype's architecture whenever possible, but sometimes I also add additional walls just to block the view into otherwise empty spaces. And in this particular case, I had to do it because the RT powerhouse has just two large halls, one for the boilers and one for the steam engines and the generators. So I had to block the view. I added walls that were a bit closer to the facade. Then the construction also must accommodate lighting. Interior walls may include door and window openings, for instance, to control the light flows. And what I also do, I engrave, or I use copper tape embedded in grooves. I engrave in the NDF walls or floors, and I use those the self-adhesive copper as lighting bus to attach or to connect the 08, 09, or 08, 05 SMD LEDs that I insert into ceiling holes. You can actually see them here too, the ceiling holes, and which I usually fix in place with a drop of hot glue, or I've fixed in place the LEDs with a drop of hot glue, which then forms a small lens. That's the internal structure or bracing. And then also, of course, I also had to add a roof. The original U-shaped roof had a front gable connecting two asymmetric twin gables and a clerestory roof that adds to a complexity. So if you look at the upper right corner, that's a cross section of the roof, or of the entire building with the roof. That shows you how complex it is, and it's asymmetric. You have some interesting intersections. So how did I do that? For the roof covering, that was the easy part almost. I used 35-inch thousandth of an inch thick laser board with engraved tiles. The soffit and clerestory walls are made of 1/16 brick sheets. Here, by the way, I used Monster Model Works brick sheets, which in my opinions are really the best sheets you can get from basswood, not just for N-scale, but also for HO and O-scale. The internal roof structure consists of interlocked lateral and longitudinal trusses, which you can see here in the photo. The trusses are laser cut from 1/16 acrylic sheet. The individual parts are brittle, but the entire structure with the roof envelope provides the necessary strength. So I used two-component epoxy to get the tight bond between the trusses and the roof envelope. So this made the roof a very strong component. This is, by the way, when I realized that the laws of physics also apply to a model, even in a small scale as N scale. The truss work is mostly invisible from the outside. However, there's a small section where the roof decking is made of glazing. You can also see that in the photo here. And okay, so finally, the prototype has 5 smokestacks integrated into the gable above the boiler hall. In the case of my model, I just was able to add 1 single smokestack, but that was a welcoming detail. So this is like 2 photos. These are 2 photos from the roof structure. One, just the trusses on the left side, and the right one, a half-finished roof. And this is the IRT powerhouse in N-scale finished here with all the details. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. I think I could give back to Speed for the Q&A.
Andreas, can you go back to one slide? How do you see that? How do you see the stuff inside that you built all inside there, all the trusses and the?
You can't. Well, as I said, there is a little on top here is a a little section that is where the roof is made of glazing. That's with the prototype as well as with my model, so you could see it. But yeah. But by the way, I mean, I would, because it was such a complicated roof structure, I would have had to come up with some kind of trusses too. I could have used MDF and not make them as nice, right? Like this. You could, but you need some. You need to get the proper shape of the roof decking. You need something more than just you can't just use the roof decking.
You couldn't just use some pink foam and file it?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, okay. I live in New York City in an apartment. I can't use foam to sand. That's just one of the materials that's not allowed in my space.
That is just amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see how many questions we got. The first one, where can we come see this layout?
Oh, it's not finished yet. I have a website that gives a bit more details. Where I have a blog where I document the progress, and some parts of the layout are also documented there. I don't know, but do you see the last slide, the thank you slide here?
I believe so. It's Harlem River Crossways.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
And we will also put the link in the YouTube live thing when I go back and put the chapter marks in.
Yeah.
Okay. So way in the beginning, you mentioned that in HO you would do something, and then in N scale, it doesn't work. So how do you decide when a feature is not feasible in N scale?
Well, that is one of the reasons why I create proof of concepts, right? With a proof of concept, I see whether something works or whether it doesn't. And I've done that for most of my buildings. Like actually on the last slide here, where you can also see, for instance, an example like a building that is in a prototype. The prototype has a cast iron facade, which is very difficult to do, and doing a proof of concept is the only way to figure out how far you can go, and what doesn't work, right?
Okay.
Because again, as you said, in N scale, things may not work. In N scale, you may have to rely more on abstractions of some patterns, or more like that end up being noise rather than something that you can actually understand what it is.
Correct. And so have you already put the lights into that building?
This one here?
Yeah, you
the
showed
IoT powerhouse?
Yeah, somewhere you showed something that had wiring in it and assume LEDs for lighting.
Yeah, it does. It is not very interesting though. I mean, you asked about how do you see what's inside, what the complicated roof structure, but like with the halls, the boiler hall and the steam generator hall, actually you could see inside. It would be a different project though, and just another project to model those details, and then you would also see, with proper lighting, you could actually see the machines, but that just goes beyond, right?
But you love
Or
projects.
at least...
What's the problem?
Yeah. No, this is actually a 3D project. That's not a laser cutting project, Speed. Something for you.
Last question. How well does MDF hold up in high humidity places? Any idea?
Yeah, you have to prime or paint on both sides, and that's one of the reasons I use solvent-based primer. I usually use Tamiya paint, which doesn't have any water, which is solvent-based. But yeah, you can get big disappointment, and of course then you also use bracing, right? Like one of the techniques I've shown you is these vertical braces, or these walls with tabs that connect into the slots of the facade. That's a pretty safe way to avoid warping of the facade.
Correct.
Right? It's you cannot, like, for instance, here that on the last page with the IRT powerhouse in N-scale as a title, that you have there. I have a strip of street, of cobblestone street in front of the building that warped after a few weeks, because in New York City we have very humid summers, and that usually, even though you know, especially that was one layer, maybe it was even two layers, but it's very hard actually to get this straight.
Cool. Well, that brings us to the end of this clinic. Thank you very, very much. Also, thank you to Brad that's hiding behind the scenes here. Um, and so I mentioned in the comments that if people want to see your work, then they need to go to any NER convention, and then they will find your stuff in the contest room. So since you don't have the layout on open house yet, right?
Okay.
Thank you, Andreas. See you
Thanks,
guys in
Steve.
the next clinic in about 5 minutes.
Take care, everyone.
Welcome back. I'm Speed at the bottom of the helix here at the November edition of NMRAx. Brad Anderson is hiding behind the scenes, and our next clinician is a retired computer geek. He enjoys finding and modeling unusual subjects. He also crossed the Czechoslovakian German border by accident. He claims he studied English literature and wrote his whole thesis on Shakespearean drama without ever reading Macbeth. For the next clinic, Weathering with Oil Pastels, all the way from Maitland, Nova Scotia in Canada, please welcome Will Lawrence.
Thanks very much, Speed. I feel like the Stig being introduced. Uh, so tonight we're going to talk about one of the many weathering materials I use in my projects, oil pastels. Turns out not everybody uses these, so we thought we'd do a little clinic on them. So without any further ado, Brad, you can roll that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Will Lawrence. I live in Maitland, Nova Scotia, and I specialize in HO scale modeling the Devco Railway and the Cape Breton and Central Nova Scotia Railway, as well as CN in Eastern Canada during the same period. Tonight, I want to talk to you about weathering using a material that apparently not everyone uses. I use oil pastels for weathering. And I'm talking about what they are, how I use them, and what benefits they have. So we're going to switch over to the bench cam. This gives you a much prettier view than my face. So when I work with weathering a car, I use basically every weathering material, but tonight I'm going to talk specifically about one. Now I'm going to show you what they look like. These are called oil pastels. These are available at just about any art store. I don't even remember where I bought these ones, but as you can see the name, they're made by a company called Pentel. Oil pastels are very compressed sticks of oil paint pigment in a very small amount of thinner, much more rigid than heavy body oils and tubes, but it is the same pigment and the same suspension. These are used the same way that pastel chalks are used, but they're because they're oil, they have much more tendency to they have a smear effect on the work, and they are much more permanent. And I have found they are a good alternative to heavy body oils or to enamel washes for certain modeling techniques. And I'm going to show you a couple of the ways that I use it. So I'll stop the share there. So as I showed in the image, I work with, as you can see, this is a small container of the thinner in the picture, which is a odorless odorless turpentine substitute. Turpenoid is one brand. This one is Mona Lisa, available at Michael's. I also use some micro brushes, and I use some regular brushes. This is a 20-aught artist's brush, a petite monogram, and this is a single-aught petite filbert. That's what I'm going to use tonight. And for a test car, I'm just going to use this old Intermountain grain hopper. So the important thing to remember is they behave exactly like oils do, except they're more rigid. So the first thing you can do with these pastels is you can pick a color that might be a rust color, and you can very simply just draw them along the edge of the car, like that, around the sharp edge. And that's going to leave a trace of material right along that edge. And I'm going to brush that off with a wider brush. This is a 1/4 inch oval mop that I use. I'm just going to brush off the excess pieces of pigment, and that's just going to leave a little mark. It's kind of difficult to see on the camera, but it's just going to leave a little mark of a oxide or rust color right at the corner of the material, just right where the paint is wearing off. Because the paint is always thinner on the corners of a rail car, because that's the way paint behaves. So again, I'm going to just carefully dust off the big crumbs that come off, and it's going to leave a little line of color right on that edge. I can do something similar along the top edge. Hopefully that'll show a little better. And I'm just very simply rubbing the stick. It really is that simple. This works very much like the weathering pencils that we see, except the weathering pencils, they have their virtues, but in certain circumstances, you might want a different effect, or you might want something that's going to stand up a little more to the steps that you're putting the model through. Just like I said, I use all the techniques, and the reason I use them all is each one is suited to a different situation. Second way I can use these pastels, I can take a micro brush and just take a little of the material on the micro brush. And as I said, this stuff smears. It's soft enough to smear onto the brush. As I work it on, I'm going to show you how I've got a little bit of material on that brush now. Now I'm going to do something similar with the brush again on the corner of the work, and I'm going to transfer just some of that material onto the model and just work it along. Another example is these vertical seams. I can work with the micro brush across the raised weld seams that are molded into this car, and it's very much like dry brushing. It's going to pick up a very small amount of material, very small amount. And as I work, what I'm trying to do here is I'm just trying to get some of that built up. I'm going to go across the seam now, because that's going to trap some of the pastel against that weld line. Again, I'm going to get my little mop out, just a few times loose. I'm going to take a little thinner and just drop it against that seam. And what that's going to do is it's going to spread around that pigment just a little bit better. And it's going to act almost like a pinwall, which we will get to as well. Sometimes, if you want a little bit more on your brush, what you can do is take a fresh micro brush and again collect some of that odorless turpentine substitute. And I like the turpentine substitute instead of, say, mineral spirits or Versol, because it is actually it reacts differently to the paint and the plastic that you're working with. Whereas mineral spirits will sometimes eat through the paint or lettering that you've got done on, especially if it's a factory model, or it may even attack the plastic. So sometimes I use the turpenoid or mineral, or even just turpentine itself. So in this case, I rubbed a little thinner on this and then picked up some pigment. As you can see, that gives me a very different result. It's very difficult to see sometimes. It does give me a very different result. I'm going to take a fresh brush with just some thinner on it. I'm just going to mop up a little excess that's formed along that seam. It is goes a long way with whether you want to build up small quantities. So those are two of the easiest ways. I think it's comments to show you, but there's more. So again, this time I'm going to use my brush. I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to use my spotter. Take my spotter, take a little thinner on it. So I'm going to black. I'm going to use different colors here so you can see a little bit of the effects I'm building up. And this time I'm building up a little extra on the brush. You see those little indentations in the pastel. You see I've used it quite a bit. So this one I'm going to use it kind of like I'd use a pen line accent. Again, I build it up, just mop it on with the brush, and I come back with the micro brush with thinner on, and I mop away the excess because I just want to highlight that seam. I want that seam to stand up just a little bit from the surrounding paint, just to show where those little bits of dirt cling to that irregularity of the surface, just like that. I'm going to show a difference again how this works. I'm going to do the next seam. I'm going to use the dry technique again. So I'm picking up some dry pigment on my micro brush. This time there's no thinner involved yet. I'm just going to gently work across the car. This is all doing exactly the same thing, but you can see there's slight variations in how it looks because of the way it's applied. So again, biscuits, we'll get a fresh one. Micro brushes, I love micro brushes. I buy them on Amazon. $10 gets you 400. I used to buy 5 of them for $1.50 at the hobby shop. $10 for 500. You'll say, well, they don't last as long. Well, no, they don't. But as you can see, I treat them as expendable. I use them for cleaning my airbrush. I use them for applying materials that are going to harm my good brushes anywhere I might not want to use one of my nice art store brushes. Because even a cheap Michaels brush is more money than one of these, much less my nice Desser brushes. You can see I'm just mopping up after that again. So this line was done just by applying the pastel material directly, just picking it up off the pastel with the micro brush and rubbing it onto that seam. And now I've cleaned it up a little bit. I've got a slightly better one. So again, I'm going to use this. This one's got thinner on it, so I'm going to get a little thinner, and I'm blotting the excess thinner off. And the reason I'm doing that is just I don't want it too soupy, and I don't want it to run around on me. So I'm just basically by adding the thinner, you're changing how the material works and how it changes, like it flows. As you can see here, get a little more on there. So I've got a little bit of the thinner, and it's spreading out quite a bit. And that's going to bring us to our next stage in this technique. So that's going on. Now I'm going to use a dry brush for my mopping because there's already lots of thinner here. I don't need to add any more. And again, I use vertical strokes. Generally with weathering, I will follow the seam, or I will follow the way gravity or wind goes. Although in some cases, like I said, the first seam I did, I will go crossways and I'm having difficulty getting it to pick up much material because a perpendicular stroke will pick up a lot more material. So again, I'm just cleaning it off. So I've got a little bit of variation in how these seams look. In case you haven't already figured out, this car is destined for the grit booth, so I don't really care. So now, go back to using an actual brush. So this, when I use an actual brush for this technique, I can load up with quite a bit more thinner. I can build a little puddle, a pool in the stick that will let me build up. Now this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a pin wash. So I'm going to get in line with got lots of thinner in my brush, and I just drop a little in there and let capillary action hold along corner right here in this corner between the sill and the side of the car. So sometimes it works better than others. There it goes a little bit. You can see it pulling along, very much like an enamel wash or like the Tamiya panel line accent range of colors, which are also very good. Just this, because it's of a different material and a different thinner, you can use this in different ways in conjunction with other materials. The rule of thumb when you're weathering, especially for washes, is your washes should be a different thinner than your paint, because then the thinner involved in the wash will not attack the paint underneath. You know, thinners for enamels and oils, generally speaking, will not attack cured acrylic paint. Similarly, acrylic thinners, water for example, will not attack cured enamel paint or lacquers. So very often I will even put a clear coat on as a buffer between my color coat and my weathering coats. And that's why, because I want to protect it from reacting. There's nothing worse than doing your weathering and trying to, control your weathering with some thinner, and the thinner attacks the paint or the decals instead of your actual weathering. So I don't know if it shows very clearly. What I've got there now is I've got a little line here along this frame rail, and as it dries, it will fade out a little bit. That gives you a little bit of latitude, much like powdered chalks do. When you clear coat them, they tend to fade out a little bit. So you usually cannot easily overdo it accidentally. It's very difficult to accidentally overdo it because it usually backs off with every coat just a little bit. And sometimes you have to work yourself up to certain weathering techniques that may or may not be reversible. One reason chalks are so popular, because you can just wash them off. Ditto powders, if you haven't clear coated them yet. So I'm just going to do this whole seam, this whole groove. So what I'm doing is I'm just simulating the accumulation of grime in this little, corner between the side sill and the car body. The stuff is going to, collect there. Rain is going to pull things there. A founding principle, I don't remember who said it, when you're talking about weathering, is remember, gravity lurks everywhere. Generally speaking, dirt and grime are going to move with gravity, not with wind, because the wind is only working on the car when the car is in motion and it's moving in different directions and it might be different speeds. But gravity is the same most of the time, all the time it's sitting still, which is most of the life of a rail. So you can have some streaking and whatnot that follows the wind, but generally speaking, streaks should be vertical. I've got a little bit of spotting on this car now, so I need to clean that up a little bit. Just a few little boo-boos with the brush, and they're not a problem to clean up. Like Bob Ross said, there's no mistakes, there's only happy accidents. And he's very right. There's no right and wrong with this stuff. I mean, sure, the prototype photograph is going to guide you, and it should, but don't worry so much about it. Because even if you've seen that prototype photograph, if you haven't shown it to your buddies, they haven't seen it. Don't worry about it. And it's okay to combine weathering techniques from two different prototype photographs too. People think that guys like me are obsessed with precision, and sometimes we are. But we also just want to get the car done too. So another thing we can do with this, if we want to steal a page from the military modelers, is we do the opposite. What I've been doing here so far is basically simulating the deterioration of the paint right where the raised part is, or simulating shadow and dirt accumulating in the corners. There's another thing we can do. This is something military modelers do more than we do, but highlighting. Highlighting can call out the raised parts, because that's how light will form shadows in the smallest possible crease, and it will also reflect differently off the smallest possible highlight point. So I'm going to pick up some white on my brush, on my micro brush. I'm going to work it just along this top of this seam, just a little bit, because that's where, again, the paint is worn off. It might not be black or rust colored in there. Sometimes it's a lighter color, especially the primer. So I'm just going to do a little light there. And what that's going to do, I'm going to do another one like that. And that's going to just highlight that there's a raised part there. And your eye's going to recognize that. This is something tank modelers do all the time. Look carefully at our shows. We often have the guys from Nova Scotia Modelers Guild, and the armor guys, they know, and the figure guys, they do a lot of this because they generally model things that are, in a static lighting situation. So some of their stuff we can't use because we have real light work with. It's always moving. But little stuff like this, little highlights, just a little bit of simulation of how the light from the side is going to catch the high points on the car. And I could also simulate some of the paint, the early stage paint there. Just going to do this up with a little bit of white. And that, like I said, it's going to highlight it as there, even if it's clean. This is what microbrush technique really works nicely. I'm going to go across the top panel, the top panel rather. It's going to show a little bit across that. It's going to show that it's not all 100 coat of paint. There's different layers here and different weather and different degrees. That's another thing that on a rail car, like I modeled the mid to late 1990s. So this gray CN 3800 cubic foot hopper, it's going to have been around a while. It's still in this paint with the red middle. It's been around a while. So what I want to do is I want to simulate that a little bit. Some of the wear through on the paint, but not so much on the cotton, because that's going to have been renewed when I got shot. And for that, I'm just going to actually take a fresh brush. Just take a little bit off there. Right where the cuts is, that should not have a highlight. It shouldn't be much dirt on it, because these panels got renewed whenever the car went through a shot. What I've got here now is just a few of those. Now, we're going to add a little rust to one of them, because you can do more than one color. So I'm just going to take my micro brush and I'm going to do these little strokes, little light strokes. I just want to pick up a little bit of that raised red, but still show some of the white. There we go. I'm going to add some more darker oxide here on that same one. And again, light strokes. Don't worry too much if you spray a bit, because you can always clean it up. But you can also do this. So now you can also do straight little more streaks up here. Instead of sweeping it away, I'm going to work it down a little bit, just a little bit, see a little light streak there. Again, less is more. And that bigger in the middle of the car body. Hopefully it'll show up better. So I'm going to work this a bit to make sure I've got lots of pigment, not much thinner on my micro brush. I'm going to put a little dollop there, just like that. There we go. Just a little dollop. And again, my trusty mop, little mop, just lick, 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 lick. It pulls it down. That's all it takes. Let's get the complete monogram involved. I'm just going to I'm going to work up a bit thinner on it. I'm going to put a drop there, drop there, drop there, and a drop there. I'm going to sit down for a minute. I'm going to let this stuff evaporate, because I don't want all that thinner in play for the next step. I'm just going to let it evaporate just a little bit. That should be enough. And again, take my mop. I'm going to go flick, 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 make it flick, flick. And just what this is doing is, I'm trying to simulate places where a little bit of the paint is worn through, some dirt has gotten on it, and pulled down by the rain. And again, I get this nice vertical streak. And the more you pull it down, the thinner it gets and the fainter it gets. So you can just keep working it down until it's almost nothing at all, and build up a lot of those, or you can just correct something if you feel you've done it wrong. There really is no wrong way to this. Same will work with dry pig with pigment right off the stick. So I'm just going to pick up a little here on my micro brush, and boop, 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 boop. That's a technical term. Boop, boop, boop. Maybe a little more. I want a nice big socket there. This is going to be more obvious rust spot. Again, with my old mop, click, 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 click. And this is going to pull it down a little bit. It's almost none there. So this is something that's usually done with heavy body oils, but you can do it with this too. Just put it, this time I picked some up on the brush, but that puts some thinner on the brush. because it'll work that way too. And each one is a slightly different variation of effect. So like I said, which is right for weathering, all of them in combination. That's how I roll. I remember where I sold this technique. Somebody said, yeah, that's a good idea. Because really what you get here is the usability of the chalks, but you get the permanence and the medium of the oils to compromise. And again, I'm going to do a little more of a seam. So I'm going to get some thinner on my brush and get some of this Mr. Oxide. This is the brown, I think. I don't know what those are called. The other colors, the greens, the blues, the oranges, I use them sometimes for other things. I've done some railbox cards I had in Railroad Model Craftsman a couple of years ago. And with the railbox logos, I actually use these pals, the yellow and the blue and the red and the black to build up the lettering in the ghost lettering I was doing on the car. Because I was using ghost lettering decals produced by Precision Design Corp. And they are just outline decals. You have to fill in the color yourself. And they work beautifully. I found the oils gave me a nice way to build up the effect. It works slowly. So I'm using a lot of thinner. And because a lot of thinner, it's going along this corner at the top. I'm just filling it in. That's a place where it was materials in the pool, we trap the carcine snow, and it's going to be, over time, it's work its way through paint, and eventually it's going to start to rust. Rust never sleeps. Ask Neil Young, he'll tell you. Again, you get it, good to have techniques that work slowly, because while it's a little frustrating to have to get through all this tedium, it lets you build up the effect gradually. And it's very important, especially with oils, because oils, they want to virtue ones for a long time. And it's good because once they're set, they're pretty much forever. You're pretty much not taking them off. But that's okay, because you can just work with it slowly and build up the effect that you want. You see, all I'm doing here is I'm just working with some thinner on a micro brush, just working along just below that seam. Not quite doing some of my other Wilsons, but that's okay. I can fix that later. And when it's dry, I can layer on some black. That'll give a different effect. Especially like laying some oxide red here and then some black on top. That works very well, because it's always what happens in the real world, where the dirt lays on top of the rust most of the time. This one, and here's where it's nice. Here's where pastels come in. Pastels are thinner, dry much more quickly than heavy body oils do. And once they're pretty much dry, you can then lay on, just like the rough. I don't know what he called this technique. He actually stole it from somebody claimed that he stole that technique. Well, he did. He stole it from an artist named Raphael during the Renaissance. But anyway, I digress. It's what I do. I'm known for it. So we're just going to lay a little black on top of that, and we're going to have the tinge of rust underneath and the black of the grime going on top. If I had more of a brown, I might do that, but the brown I have is kind of close to the oxide color, so I don't think I will. You can get these in all kinds of colors, so not just the standard reds and blacks, but you can get all kinds of different ones. I think I paid $5 for this set of pastels, something like 15 years ago. So that's also a virtue of them. They're cheap. And that is something else for which I am known. So generally, I just clean them up with the regular thinner. But for final cleaning, I usually take my good brushes. I'm going to switch them around and some paint remover. This is Poly S Easy Lift Off. I don't think it's manufactured anymore. And if anybody has it, I'm not for sale. I'm not going to tell you, because instead I'm going to buy it for my own personal stash, because I love this stuff. So you're on your own. Sorry. And again, take my mop. This is one of my go-to weathering brushes for basically every technique. Is a couple of nice round mop brushes. I think I've got two of them. Yeah, 2 1/4-inch or 6.3 millimeter oval mops. Those are great for doing what I was doing there, dispersing material, spreading it around, and just building up a smaller layer. Those are the basics right there of working with oil pastels. It really is a simple technique. It's a step or two up removed from the very basic powders or the pastel chalks, but it gives you some more flexibility. It allows you to do some techniques you can't really do with chalks, but it's almost as easy to clean up when you're first starting with it. And it works very well with different undercoats. So at this point, we'll probably go back to our live call, and I'll take some questions. used for weathering. They were chalk pastels were a very popular weathering medium back in the 80s. They've kind of been superseded by powdered pigments and by weathering powders. The oil pastels are used for similar art, but they have the oil paint components, so they're permanent. But you can usually find them anywhere art supplies are sold. I think I paid $5 for my set.
And so you use different thinning ratios or something for different applications?
Yes, for different effects, I'll use varying amounts of thinner. I'll just put a little puddle of thinner, as I showed in the video, right on the pastel, and I'll just work up what I require, and just work up the thickness, the consistency that I figure is useful. For lighter, whether I'm doing a light effect or a heavier effect. If I go thick enough, I can actually do something similar to what you do with heavy body oils to draw rust streaks on a car, except as a fainter effect.
Okay. And then what kind of brushes should you use? Could you use are available?
Mostly, I use very simple oil paint brushes. Again, Michaels is the chain in Canada that I use. These are made, the brand name is Princeton. These are nice, short, stubby handle brushes. I like them a lot. They've got genuine hair bristles, which makes them useful for oils and for other synthetics. If you use something made for acrylics, the thinner might break down the bristles. And with just mineral spirits and a little bit from my secret stash of Poly-S Easy Lift Off paint remover. I don't think that's sold anymore, but I've got a stash of it that I use for final cleaning on my brushes. No, I won't share it.
No. I think I have your address. Is there a shelf life for the pastels?
Not that I've noticed. I bought this set. I think I bought it in 2007. So it's pushing 20 years old. It's basically the pigment of oil paint with very little thinner in it, so it'll keep indefinitely.
Okay. Do you have a favorite place to find prototype images?
I'm a big fan of rrpicturearchives.net. It's been going through some issues migrating to new servers and whatnot in the last year, but it is still a robust collection of images. They're having some indexing problems, so certain roads and stuff aren't showing up, but they have an amazing archive of images. There's also for Canadian prototypes, there is the Canadian Freight Railcar Gallery, whose website I can't remember offhand, and there's Nakina NAKINA.net. That's a separate archive of Canadian railcar images. The Canadian Freight Railcar Archive is run by Chris Vanderheide, is who runs it, and it's an excellent resource. And of course, Facebook. There's lots of Facebook groups for particular prototype railroads. If you model a railroad, there's probably a group for it. I haven't found one for modeling my current prototype, the Devco Railway. I'm sure it's out there. I just haven't noticed it. But there's only about 4 people that model that railroad. So
cool. So when we got this whole set up and ready, I noticed there was some brass-looking thing on your desk.
Oh, there was this little fella. This is the Athabasca scale models kit for a Canadian national caboose. This is the old photo etched brass style of kit. This was produced from the early 90s through the early 2010s by a company called Athabasca Scale Models. And they were famous for passenger car sides. And they also did Canadian cabooses. They did this van. This is called a Point St. Charles van. It's the Point St. Charles shops in this Canadian National Montreal built these cars. Excuse me. They also did a CP van. I've built probably a dozen of these kits over the years. I have 4 in my own. This is the 4th one for my own fleet. I used to build them for a hobby shop as well because they came as a flat photo etched brass kit. Came in an envelope. The car body of this car, the sides, the floor, the ends, and the sills are one brass etching that you fold 3 times, and you make this 4 times, and you make the
So
main car body.
so it's just a sheet that you,
Yep, it's just a sheet. It's like brass origami.
and then do you have to
Um,
solder the ends?
you can solder them, but they actually don't recommend soldering. And I've tried a couple times and found soldering to not work as well as following the instructions. Hey, if you look inside, you can see it's held together with tabs. The
Oh
tabs
wow.
just fold over inside the slots, slot A, tab B kind of stuff, and then you super glue the tab on the inside to keep it from moving. You keep the part from moving, and that's a very effective. Every time I look at it, it strikes me as an unlikely way to assemble it, and yet I've never found a better way to put these cars together. I've tried, and I'm a decent solderer, but it just doesn't work better any other way. And it
And
builds up into a very nice, accurate model. The early runs of this car did have an issue. The roof on this one, you see how it's all nice and flat?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The early run of this car, it had a paneled roof because I had a photograph that showed what it was a winter photograph, and the cars have heat in them, and the frost on the roof had evaporated off, leaving these lines where the thicker frame members were that were insulating it,
Oh,
and
okay.
it looked like panels. And the first run of cars were done that way. So later runs they fixed it. So you can take the earlier runs and you can flatten out the roof. You take some sheet styrene and some patience, but it can be done. I've done them both ways.
And then what's the next step from there? You gotta get your
Well,
fingerprints off, right?
well, yes, you have to wash the model like any other model. You wash it. I wash mine with usually with Dawn dish soap because it doesn't have lanolin in it, which leaves a residue. As an extra measure, especially something like this, I'll wash it again with a 70% isopropyl alcohol to remove any soap residue. And in some cases, I will grit blast it with aluminum oxide just to give the material a little bit more tooth so the paint can adhere. I'll prime it with right now I'm still using my last cans of Tamiya and Mr. Hobby lacquer
Okay.
primer,
Okay.
which contain a large amount of VOCs, volatile organic compounds, which are being banned from consumer products in Canada. You can't buy those primers in Canada anymore. They've been pulled off the shelf at the retail level. I This happened about a year ago, and I called one of my vendors. Went to several of my vendors, and I basically cleaned them out of primer because I go through a lot of it. And I'm getting to the bottom of my stash. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I've been experimenting and trying to figure out what's going to work as well because that to me a primer just worked so beautifully well. I'm going to miss that, but that it messes up the environment. So well, I like having a planet to live on too. I can show you how these cars look built up. Excuse me a moment. Scan window. So this is an earlier model I did, and you can see how it's been fine, gone through. It's about the same stage as this car, except it has the end plates in place. So the end sills and end rails are photo etch parts that are laminated to create a three-dimensional part.
And
And when I do,
you glue them on as well?
yes, they're super glued on and they're held in with pins, with wire
Okay.
pins. And now in my case, the iron railings and grab irons, you can see here they're brass wire. The
Yeah, yeah,
kit
yeah.
they come photo etched out of flat brass, but I replace them with wire to give the correct profile.
Oh, okay.
That's one of the few mods I do. This is a similar car after it has paint. This is one of my fleet, the Cape Breton and Central Nova Scotia Railway. I built this car a number of years ago. It had an interior in it, although you can't see much through those windows. It's riding on Atlas caboose trucks. And again, I've replaced the railings with just putting the round wire instead of the flat etching makes a huge difference in these cars. There's my caboose fleet. Um, so this car and this car are both the brass kits. This is a brass import of a slightly different Canadian National van. This is the same prototype that is done by the current Rapido Trains van.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is a resin kit of the same CN car as the bottom cars. Was done in the 90s by Sylvan Scale Models. You can still find that kit. And this is a Sylvan Scale Models transfer caboose.
Okay.
Again, it's a resin kit.
And the trucks
There's
are all plastic then?
The trucks yes, are all plastic. Athabasca did make trucks for these cars, but they were an abysmal kit to build. I've never seen a set of them that actually worked. Kind of like the old Intermountain trucks, only worse. So this is a Sam Hongza brass model imported by Van Hobbies, and it's actually a very good model of the CN Hawker Siddeley cabooses. This is the car, like I said, the Rapido Trains is currently running. Again, though, I put Atlas trucks under it because they run better. This is, I talked about the panels on the roof. This is what the roof looks like in the process of having that paneled roof corrected.
Hmm.
So you can see where I've trimmed 5,000 of an inch sheet styrene and super glued it to the roof, and then I sanded it out and primed it and filled it and primed it and filled it and
Okay.
sanded it until I was just about ready to tear my hair out. What's left of it. But you can see there, that's also, I haven't installed the cupola on this one yet. But it does get, you can see there, there's slots for the tabs. There are 4 tabs that come down through these slots, and you twist them and you super glue them. And that holds it
Okay.
in place very well.
Okay. Quick question: when you do that first layer of primer, does it matter if there's super glue or metal underneath it?
Um, Not really. If you sand it out properly, it doesn't matter. The primer, a good primer is material agnostic. It doesn't really care what it's been laid on top of. That's why the lacquer primer from Tamiya works so very well. Is it really behaved the same on styrene and metal and super glue. It did react a little differently if it was applied to wood,
Okay.
but I rarely encounter that because I don't use a lot of wood in my freight car kits, and I don't usually use Tamiya primer when I'm painting a wood kit because it's kind of overkill. I just use a an inexpensive enamel primer or an inexpensive enamel rust paint, even just to give a quick shot on the wood parts to seal it, because I usually paint with acrylics, and you want to seal the wood so the acrylic paint, the water doesn't draw out of the acrylic paint and swell the wood.
Okay.
When you're not using organic materials, it's less important, but a thin coat that doesn't obscure details is important. That's why I like the Tamiya and the Mr. Hobby primers, because they had such fine pigment.
Okay. Now that we've derailed your whole clinic from pan pastels, are these
Digressions
going?
are kind of what I do.
Are these going to some railroad, some layout?
Those models, those cabooses are all part of my personal fleet.
Okay.
Although actually the resin caboose in the picture, the top left corner one, that car actually went to a friend's house because it was a model of the last caboose that was in service in the local area. And a good friend of mine, a good a long-standing rail fan and a good modeling friend, he's modeling that area. So I gave him that car for his layout
Okay.
because he's modeling that period.
But the behind the scenes question is there's not a layout in sight there somewhere close by?
No, I'm a modular model order.
Okay.
I don't have a room of suitable. I did have a small home layout when we first moved here, but as our family expanded, I needed that room. So that room is now one of my son's room, and I've occasionally threatened to take it back, but he keeps coming home. So I've got my modules. I've been doing modules for 35 years now, and I really enjoy the outreach opportunity it gives. I love encouraging young modelers or just young
Yes.
rail fans. I really, I've seen, I've been like 35 years. I've seen a couple of generations of modelers now show up at under 10 years old and watch them grow up and grow into the hobby or just grow up generally. I've watched a couple of railway employees come of age and become railway employees, and I really enjoy that outreach and answering people's questions. Especially the big show we have in this area is usually in late October, middle of October, and people are starting to think about Christmas. And it comes up, my kid's train set doesn't work. What do I do? You have asked exactly the right guy, or maybe
Correct.
the wrong one, depending on whether you want this to actually work. Because I'll fix it or die trying. And I've fixed a couple of train sets for friends and stuff, and just for neighbors. They show up as like, it's often something as simple as dirty track or dirty
Yeah,
contacts.
yeah, yeah.
And I really love seeing people get excited about stuff like that. And I really love helping people get over some obstruction that's keeping them from really enjoying this hobby, because this hobby has been a good thing for me over the years. I've had some various health issues in the last few years, and even when I couldn't do anything else, I'd watch train show footage or modeling footage. I'd watch Jason Jensen build buildings. I'd watch
Cool.
train shows in the UK. And as I got my dexterity and my concentration back, I started with simple stuff of my modeling, because I've been doing this for so very long. I got my first train set 50 years ago, and I discovered my hands had muscle memory, how to do a lot of the simple modeling tasks, and I rebuilt a lot of things around that, and
Cool.
it's been
Cool.
good for me.